China Chat.
China Chat, China Chat,
China Chat. China Chat with Greg Granger.
China Chat.
China Chat,
China Chat with Greg Granger.
China Chat.
China Chat,
China Chat.
China Chat with Greg Granger.
Hello and welcome. Today we're talking travel around the world globally and also specifically to China and Australia. We'll be looking at the pandemic restrictions, how COVID has affected travel so badly around the globe these last 2 years and how restrictions are now slowly being eased. It means we'll be able to travel to wonderful places just like this, the Grand Canal in Jiangsu province. Today we've assembled a stellar list of panellists. So let's hear from those panellists. Wendy, such a privilege to have you here today. Just give us a bit of background about yourself, please.
Thank you, Greg. Yes, so Wendy from Wendy Tours. We are the #1 China specialist operator in Australia, New Zealand, and the Great Britain. And I am so happy to be here because traveling to China and send millions of customers to China is our passion, and that's what we love.
So you certainly are a passionate lady. You've travelled all over China so many times. You've taken so many people from here in Australia and internationally to China. So we could say that you are the grand goddess of Chinese travel.
Thank you.
Craig, we understand you've set up that business in Hong Kong. You've become something of a proven Chinese expert.
I wouldn't count myself as an expert because there is so much to learn in China, but certainly do love going over there, love traveling around, meeting the people. It's always fun.
So you're based in Hong Kong. That's where your team is. That's a very good operational starting point, is it not, to access all of China?
It certainly is. Obviously, Hong Kong is a global city, and it's always lots of fun to go over there. It's very vibrant. I live in Perth, which is sort of a little bit more quiet and homely. So going to the larger cities in Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, always very exciting.
So, Dr. Fang Liu, tell me about yourself, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Fang Liu. I work at the University of Western Australia. I'm in the marketing field. One of my key research areas is tourism of, China, Asian tourism. So I'm passionate about the topic, and I also do a lot of trips in China related to the tourism there. So thanks for having me today. Thank you.
So you're researching travel to China. That would involve, as you just said then, traveling to China, traveling all over China, getting to know what's on offer in China, what people want in China, how travelers are thinking about China.
Yes, that will be one part of the research. I also do research from the Chinese tourist to Australian perspective, which means I also look at cross-cultural aspect of tourism, how Australian tourists experience in China and how Chinese tourists experience in Australia. So I try to sort of facilitate both sides in the tourism field. So that's what I do.
So thank you so much. And finally, we'll head off to China, to our delightful friend Tiger. Now you, of all people, live and breathe China every single day.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Greg. I'm Tiger. I graduated from Xi'an International Studies University in 1985. Right after I graduated from the university, I joined the China International Travel Service in Xi'an and became a tour guide. I've been working as a local tour guide in Xi'an for more than 50 years, since 1985. I have to say that I witnessed the development of the Chinese tourism, because 1985 was just a few years after China was open to international tourists. I've been working in this field and I like it very much. And my clients include some celebrities like former President Bill Clinton and his family, and more recently, Michelle Obama and her 2 daughters when they visited Xi'an.
So thank you very much for that. Wonderful. That would have been a wonderful experience, of course. And in this episode, we're going to talk about the pandemic and how it's affected travel, but we're going to take a break we're going to travel to Anhui, to a beautiful city, Hongchun. This will give you an idea of the delightful traditional aspects that you're likely to encounter in China.
This place is consistently one of the most scenic places to see in the whole of China. So we're here now, and it's kind of obvious why this place is on that list. It's absolutely stunning. There's water, there are bridges, you've got that whitewashed architecture that is just like so representative of this region.
Amy, tell me about tourists. It obviously must be a great tourist attraction, and yet people still live in this village. It's a functioning village, is it not?
Yes, it's still a functioning village. There are still people that live here. At the moment, actually, we have like about 100, 200 students that are lining the banks of the river here, painting. So yeah, they get like I heard that they have like a week-long ticket that they can come in and out for a week, paint, learn, sit, enjoy. Sounds like a pretty nice week to me.
So it really is a dream for those students painting there right now.
Well, yeah, it really is. It's actually often been called like the painter's village. It's a place that often appears in paintings and artworks through the centuries. So yeah, it's very appropriate that all these students have come here today to paint it.
Okay, let's talk about the pandemic around the world. Wendy, you of all people would know what's happened with the pandemic and how critical it's been to travel globally.
Yes, Greg. It is a devastating for the travel industry, plus possibly every aspect of society. And however, I believe you would agree with me, Greg, the fact that the travel industry and the hospitality is most hit. And among that, Wendy Tours, unfortunately, was the first one got hit because we are the biggest China operator in these three countries I mentioned. And even today, of course, we are still affected because unfortunately, even though so many people love to go back to China, all through the time, we continue to have customer booking and then move their booking to the next year. But nonetheless, nobody can go. And still people are wanting to go. So that what's this COVID is being devastating. However, the wonderful thing is gradually more and more destinations opened. So we have experienced the opening of Vietnam, Cambodia, and recently, last Friday, Japan, which has been the fantastic news in the travel industry. It's a fantastic all around. We are just feeling the positive, and hopefully the China border will open soon too. And that will be just something that we are so much looking forward to. Great.
So Wendy, let's talk specifically about your business. How was your business affected when there were so many shutdowns?
Wow. I remember very, very clearly that in 2020, in February, in fact, 23rd of February 2020, I was in Australia and with my team in Australia and New Zealand. And I remember I was holding this very high-level talk with all the big consortia, such as Flight Center, Hello World, and House of Travel, and talking about, gosh, you know, this China has been closed and Japan's been closed, but still other countries are open. And we are talking about this, hopefully will be very short. And I was telling the consortia leaders that, don't worry, you know, SARS happened was just 6 months. So I said, stay put, China will be back, Japan will be back. But you know how wrong I was.
So all credit to you, Wendy, that you've been able to keep your business long and ready to move ahead when China and the rest of the world does open up.
That is 100%. All this time we stayed very strong and very solid. And we keep on talking with the travel trade partners, such as travel agents, and also media. So, for example, BBC and what's called World News and Sydney Morning Herald, Australian, and just all the media. We keep on telling them, yes, it may open, and every time a country saying to us, we want to open, we tell everybody. Anyway, so yes, Greg, we did what we can, what we are passionate about, share the travel dreams and keep the travel flavor and the temperature high as far as we can.
Craig Jones, I want to talk to you about a move you made. You opened a business in Hong Kong in the middle of this pandemic.
Yep, that is correct. So back in 2020, when the pandemic first hit, I was actually in Xi'an on holiday at the time, and had to travel back to Australia to, because the borders were closing. So at the time, I had to travel through Hong Kong and identified that there was a lack of products available in Hong Kong and China of the products that I am looking at, or that I look at selling. And yeah, started a business in Hong Kong about 18 months ago. So some would say that's crazy. Some would say that that's insightful. We're still going 18 months later. So, I'll take the insightful side of it. And yeah, it's worked out really, really well for us.
So let's summarize that. You've been able to make a business succeed in Hong Kong, in China, in the middle of this lockdown.
That is correct, yes. So we started on the HKTV Mall, which is an e-commerce platform in Hong Kong. So we targeted that during the lockdowns so that people could access our foods. The shipments and stuff were obviously difficult with the, with the shutdown of airlines, but we worked around that, and the outcome for us has been fabulous.
Thanks so much, Craig. Let's switch back over to you, Dr. Fang Liu. Dr. Fang, your own research, what are your own findings on how critical, how severe, how devastating that pandemic lockdowns were?
Well, I did have some research on that side. I can talk about it more detailedly. In 2020, in January, I was in Hainan province doing research with my collaborators, Professor Tong and others from Hainan University on tourism in Hainan province, because each place in China has such unique features, and they will need different types of tourism positioning strategy to attract foreign tourists, such as Australian tourists. So you can see my background has coconut tree. So it kind of made me think about those days that I was in Hainan just before the pandemic. So yeah, I agree with Wendy and Craig. There are significant impacts on the tourism market when we look at China, and also including Australia as well. Is that the foreign visitors going to China is kind of almost, you can estimate there will be really, really few tourists who can get in over there during the pandemic. And also the within China tourism, there are some interesting patterns here. In the first year and two, during the lockdown period, there won't be much cross-provincial travels within the Chinese market. But I just heard from my colleagues, they keep updated with the latest figure, is that within the same city, within the same province, the travel and the tourists that we call short haul tourists, actually the tourism volume has been almost getting, if it's not more than the prior pandemic numbers. So China's own tourism market within province, within city, has been recovering quite well. And of course, I agree with Wendy that when the international borders open and China release restrictions on COVID-related measures, yes, we can see that will be a huge increase in terms of the international tourists going into China.
So Dr. Fang, we see behind you those wonderful waving palm trees, golden beach, lovely surf. This is the Hawaii of China. This is Hainan. Now, we've traveled to Hainan and had such wonderful experiences, including meeting the Li people. There are 9 million people living here in Hainan, 1 million of which are the Li. Now, these guys, we've just stumbled on them, they're from the Li people, and they practice every single day of the week. They've made their own instruments, typical of the rich Li culture.
Among the instruments being played here today, the nose flute, popular amongst Li musicians. Most of Hainan's Li people live close to the land, cultivating their own vegetables. They're also keen entertainers. With a government delegation about to arrive from Beijing, this group performed their rehearsal in front of me.
So Tiger, you're based there in Xi'an, you're a tour guide, that's your full-time job. How many tourists have you shown around these last 2 years during the pandemic?
I have to say not many. And those foreign visitors to Xi'an are mostly those who are living in China right now. Last year, we had a promotion of tourism of Xi'an. We had some foreigners because we wanted to have these foreign faces in our promotion. And they are all students, people working in China. So they live in China. We haven't got anybody who actually traveled across border into China to tour China in these last 2.5 years.
So Tiger, have you lost all work? Have you had any work of any substance at all these last 2 years? Have you seen any tourists?
Well, the company that I work with, China International Travel Service, our main business is inbound travel and outbound travel. We're not so familiar with domestic travel. So in the last 2.5 years, actually, right after the pandemic outbreak in Wuhan in early 2020, it was not too long for the domestic travel to recover. I remember May holidays that year, and there were already significant number of travelers, tourists in Xi'an. And then that year in October holidays, well, it was a huge number. I felt almost like it was even bigger than before the pandemic. But for the inbound and outbound travel is like a dead. And so we have suffered a lot. And we before the pandemic, we got more than 400 employees in the company. And right now we have only 200 left because we can only pay them the very basic salary that cannot support their families. So many of them have left.
Tell me this, you specialise, we know, in Shaanxi province, the Terracotta Warriors. Let's take a look at those Terracotta Warriors because we had a wonderful experience there with you. This is just so impressive.
Yeah, this is the world famous Terracotta Warriors and the horses, and built by the first emperor of the Qin Shi Huang in 200 BC.
So this is exactly where the Terracotta Warriors stood. We know that because we saw their feet embedded in the clay, even though the statues themselves had been broken.
Yes, this is the actual site of the Terracotta Warriors. When they were discovered, they were all in broken pieces.
In fact, while an estimated 8,000 have been found, only 1,500 have been assembled.
So down here we're seeing as it would have been when these Terracotta Warriors were discovered, the broken pieces.
So archaeologists and workers have been taking painstaking work to put them back together.
Wendy, would tell me please about travelling to China now. We know it's been locked down for some time, as with most of the world. When is travel likely to open up yet again to China?
This is a hard question because I am certainly not in one of the decision maker. I wish I could. That I would say tomorrow, but okay. I'm very optimistic still. And 2 months ago, if you asked me, Greg, I would say sometimes this year still possible because the Chinese government authority is just so proactive. They are very quick. However, now, knowing that Shanghai has been closed and reopened, so I guess now I have to be realistic as well. So I would say, hopefully, very beginning of next year.
So Wendy, of course, people need to plan ahead. You need to plan ahead. It's not such a bad time now to be planning for great travel experiences in China there. I want to show you a great experience we've had up on the Great Wall. Just take a look at this one.
As you can see behind me here, I am at the Great Wall of China, a colossal man-made structure with over 2,300 years of history. a lot of people have this idea of the Great Wall as one long continuous structure. Actually, it's not. It's made up of lots of different segments built by different people at different times in history. But the one main function of the Great Wall in general is to protect China's northernmost boundary.
Amy, it's not one continuous wall.
So there are many sections of the Great Wall of China you can visit within Beijing, but we have come today to Mutianyu, which is one of the more popular sections of the Great Wall for tourism because it's only about an hour and a half drive away from Beijing. We are still within the Beijing city limits. And another reason why it's so popular with tourists is it's very beautifully restored. The views from this section of the Great Wall are incredible. Even behind me here, you can see we've got beautiful cherry blossoms, and behind you can see the Great Wall on this mountain snaking up between the peaks and the valleys. It's absolutely breathtaking.
So Wendy, when travel does reopen to China, what needs to be done? Do you book with a tour company to go yourself? How do you get visas? What's the process?
Okay, once it's open, we have been always communicated with our customers. We said China is one of the safest country you can travel to because they have the most kind of disciplined restrictions. So I said, there's no chance ever for you to worry about you will get COVID from the locals. It's really that no one wants to get COVID from you and from us. So therefore, I believe all the customers here and all the eager tourists will be wanting to go and will be happy to go. The thing is, they should, and we will absolutely recommend it to them and make sure to assist them, is to obey and to follow the local rules. For example, if mask is required, so be it. And if social distance or at a restaurant, certain procedure need to be followed, we document it and we held their hand. So therefore, they can actually do everything right and enjoy the wonderful country without the crowds. That's the way.
Thanks so much there, Wendy. Dr. Fang, can I ask you about the best time to go to China?
Right. Thank you for the question. I agree with Wendy that we, from the tourism point of view, from the Australian tourist point of view, we very much look forward to the opening of the Chinese tourism market. Go back to your question, what's the best season to visit a specific place? I would like to quote one of my colleagues' words all the time. He's quoting someone else, is that there will be 1,000 hamlets in 1,000 people's eyes. So in our tourism point of view, we think every place, every season, every day, every month, right, every moment is a good a time to visit. So we're talking about Zhangjiajie. I think some of you probably heard of that. It's one of the major ecotourism sites in China, located in Hunan province. So what some people would say the best season is in March or September and October. But in fact, Professor Zhang, my colleague in Sun Yat-sen University, has done on-site research there for many years. And he said, every day is beautiful, Fang. You and your friends should come here. Doesn't matter what season, doesn't matter what month, because each day is such a lovely day. And we're talking about in pandemic, I think right now in this place and some other places in China, there are 24 cameras, what we call this a virtual tourism. So this is one of the measures the Chinese government, local authorities are promoting tourism. So what they're doing is they're using a 24 side camera in most of the key sites in that particular region and place. And then foreign tourists, online, you can see what happened that day in what hour. So I think that greatly promotes the destination branding here. And once the restriction have been released, then I think a lot of people would really go there to really experience the beauty of each place.
Well, thank you so much for that. Craig, I want to talk about favourites amongst all of you. What would you say was your favourite location to travel to in China?
So far, it's been Xi'an. I went over winter, so I was able to go and visit the Terracotta Warriors and some of the other, very, very famous parts there. Less people, which was always good, and that was a really interesting experience for me. Closely behind that was Hong Kong.
So Tiger, of course, you've got Craig there boosting Xi'an. That's your hometown. Apart from Xi'an, where would you suggest is the best place to visit there in China?
Well, I think if you like history, and I think probably Beijing, and with all those museum historical sites will be a place. And if you love the natural beauty, and you may go to the Yangtze River Three Gorges part, and also Guilin in Guangxi province, the beautiful landscape there.
So you mentioned Beijing first off there. What about the Forbidden City? Let's take a look at our experiences there.
They actually call it the Palace Museum. So it's pretty much an outdoor museum. You can walk around and experience history firsthand. Symbolism is indeed the Forbidden City's middle name. There are symbols everywhere here. For example, on the doors of the Forbidden City, you can see lots of doornails. And on each door, there are 81 doornails, 9 rows of 9 doornails. And the reason behind this number 9 is that 9 is the highest single number. So it was given to the emperor as his official number as a sign of supremacy. And another place you can see the repetition of this number 9 at the Forbidden City are on the roof ridges. Any building used by the emperor would have 9 roof ridge animals, mystical animals sitting there. But the one behind me here, this building is the Hall of Supreme Harmony. This building actually has 10 mystical animals sitting on the roof ridges. And the reason why is that this building was the most important and largest building in the Forbidden City. And it was here that the emperor would exercise his imperial power.
So Wendy Wu, you travel everywhere in China, no doubt. What are your top 3?
Top 3, history and culture is Xi'an and Beijing, and cosmopolitan Shanghai. Natural beauty, that's Jiuzhaigou, Zhangjiajie, and uniqueness, Tibet.
So Wendy, of course, you were born in the Chinese province of Tibet, quite a place.
Yes, I was. And my parents are both medical doctors, sent there to help building the hospital over there. And I lived there altogether for 7 years. And I love every bit of Tibet. And whenever Tibet, because this and that reason, we are the first one to go in, we are the last one to come out. So Tibet is a kind of a little bit my home.
So Dr. Fang, let's cross back over to you. Your favorite travel destination there in China?
Well, I haven't really traveled all the places I want to go in China, so that's what I'm looking forward to for the next 10 years. My favorite place in the place I've been to, I think every place is favorite, as I said, but I would talk about my most memorable experience would be Xinjiang, and would be in the Mongolia, would be Tibet. So those are those places providing a really unforgettable, memorable experience for me, if you're talking about personally. So I was born in Hunan, but I grew up in Guangzhou. So Hunan, it has a lot of beautiful sites, such as Zhangjiajie, such as Yuelushan, such as Dongting Lake. So all these are natural or nature-based tourism sites famous in China and the world. And also I grew up in Guangzhou. So Guangzhou is a place that you would a lovely place for shopping tourism, for eating tourism, for cuisine, and all sorts of entertainment tourism. So it depends on your purpose of travel. If you want to really experience something special, I think all places in China will offer that special uniqueness to tourists who have never been to China. So I agree with all the guests here. Historical, whether you are interested in culture, historical tourism, heritage tourism, nature-based tourism, and also shopping tourism or entertainment tourism. So all these are different purposes of your motivations behind the tourism.
So let me jump in here on a personal note. Food. Food is fantastic wherever you go in China, but especially down in Chengdu, down in Sichuan province. Let's take a look at our food gourmet experience down there in Sichuan.
Not only is this the hometown of giant pandas, it's also a vital breadbasket for much of China. But it's in the area of cuisine that Sichuan has earned the hottest reputation. Hot and spicy. Take a walk through the colourful market alleys and you'll encounter hundreds of tasty dishes on offer. In all, there are 40,000 registered restaurants in Chengdu alone, employing more than 600,000 workers. The rich, spicy food is even spreading globally, with Sichuan restaurants found in cities as far afield as Sydney and Melbourne, with a red chilli restaurant specialising in this cuisine. Take a peek in the kitchen, and there they are, chefs flavouring every exotic dish. It's a gourmet lover's paradise. With so many restaurants, there's tough competition among chefs to come up with something different.
So Wendy, you must have had some very special experiences down there in Sichuan.
Yes, you talk about food, Greg. I remember when I worked for American Express in Australia, and I had the opportunity to go to China for business. And I remember every time when the company sends me there, I always think of all sorts of excuses to go to Sichuan, go to Chengdu, because I love the food there. And the restaurant over there is not the same as the one in Australia. You can actually say a restaurant is 5-story high, the entire building. And the whole family and all the crowd just go there. It's wonderful. And I highly recommend everybody go to Sichuan for food.
So Craig, I'm going to cut to you. Wendy is selling us so strong on Sichuan and food. There's another great experience to be had down there. You must be head down there, and that's the Pandas.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, going back to the food, my goal in China is to get to every city and eat dumplings and hot pot in every single city of China. So I think that's my ultimate goal in traveling to China. But most definitely the Pandas are something that I think everybody has to go and see.
Well, let's take a look-see at the Pandas. There's an experience we had with the Pandas in Chengdu.
A change of face, a change of pace, as we prepare to encounter pandas.
China's national treasure, the panda, adorable. Now, they are an endangered species, but numbers, thankfully, are increasing with breeding programs like this. 520 now in captivity, 1,800 in the wild.
One big success story greets us on arrival at the Duzhang base for giant pandas. This is Fifi, a 23-year-old panda who's just successfully increased the panda population by 1. And here she is, Fifi's baby, just 9 months old. So young, she's yet to be named, but certainly feisty enough to wrestle mum. Fifi's fellow pandas are active all over the base, such as these babies being hand-fed.
You just want to cuddle those little guys, don't you? The Pandas of Chengdu, fantastic. So let's look at what's so special. What are your special experiences there in China? Let's start with you, Tiger.
Well, I think the uniqueness about China is his people and his history and his culture. And China actually has a long history of 5,000 years. And Chinese people have gone through many different periods of time. And the Chinese language is a very special language that keeps the unity of China for a long time.
Wendy, what is it about China you love so much?
It's the diversity. And as you mentioned, you know, the food, the people, and the busyness, and also the history. It's very fast paced going forward. And yet it's very mystique and very well preserved. So all of that is wonderful. And what's called the welcoming and the futuristic as well as the ancient. Once it's combined, it's just wonderful.
Thank you. Fang, Dr. Fang.
Well, I agree with the other panel members. I think each place, right, in China, you can easily just go to a place that's already 1,000 years old. It's already 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. So I think that every place in China, they will have their unique natural, landscape features, cultural features, historical features, food and entertainment, all sorts of other things. So I totally agree. I think each place will be called an organic tourism branding here, that each place. And in China, they will be having multiple facets of tourism attractions, not just culture, not just historical, but also nature and other things. So I really think that that's what attracts me most, is that you go to a place, you can get a combination, such as what Wendy has just described, a combination integrated experience of tourism. So that's really marvelous and amazing to me, and I think to many tourists as well. Yeah.
Well, Craig, let's hear from you. Your great insights, your great experiences.
Look, for me, the most important thing is the food. So traveling around eating all the different food for me was always a highlight. But the history, the people themselves, they're exceptionally friendly, especially to a foreigner that comes to visit the beautiful country. I've had many experiences of people helping me because I don't know the language. So overall, I rate it as a highly, enjoyable experience.
Well, fantastic, and thanks for that. I'm going to cut to a very special experience that I've enjoyed watching there in Jiangsu province, travelling down through the water towns.
There is an abundance of water here in Jiangsu, and it's influenced everything from the local cuisine, the architecture, the town planning, as well as the prosperity of the region. So back in the day, this region saw a lot of trade thanks to all of these canals, much like the one we're on now. So as a result, it brought a lot of prosperity to the region, as well as these water towns that sprung up to service this trade route.
You're obviously on the water there, Amy, but where exactly?
So I am in the lovely water town of Zhouzhuang. It's known as China's first water town and arguably China's most popular water town. And it's popular for a reason. It's absolutely gorgeous. We have waterside cafes and eateries. We have ancient stone bridges, paved alleyways, water behind us here. It's wonderful.
So, Amy, what is the definition of a water town?
So a water town is exactly what it sounds like, Greg. It is a town on the water. And here in Jiangsu, there are so many of them. That's because that back in the day, these ancient water canals saw a lot of trade. So these water towns sprung up to service these trade routes. And that's why there are a lot of water towns here in Jiangsu.
So let's talk about Australia now. Now, of course, you're in Australia right now, although you've got an office there in London as well, Wendy. So, Wendy, tell us about travellers from Australia, of your business all over the world. What percentage would be Australians?
Greg, we are a specialist tour operator. So therefore, our large businesses take Australians and the New Zealanders and the British go to China and Asia. However, only a small percentage of our business is actually take Chinese come to Australia and to UK and to New Zealand, only at a special request. However, I do want you to know that prior to pandemic, then the tourist arrival from China is steadily going up. And China is one of the largest market for Australia and for New Zealand and for Britain. And the visit number and plus it's a huge number of percentage of increase.
And tell me this, Dr. Fang. Dr. Fang, what is it? Let's switch to Australia now. You're also specialising and studying about visitation to Australia. Can you expand on that, please?
So in the past few years, I also look at how Australia can attract more tourists from the Asian Pacific region. So of course, China is one of the key markets for the Australian international tourist market. And if we go back to prior pandemic, I think just before pandemic, China already surpassed New Zealand as the first, as the #1 international sourcing country for Australian tourism. That's actually also in other states, except Western Australia. I think Chinese tourists, doesn't matter in terms of numbers or in terms of spending per day, it's actually top 1 or 2 in each of the states of Australia, except Western Australia. Western Australia, Chinese tourist numbers have been increasing, but it's still sitting about 5.6 prior pandemic. That's why Western Australia have done a lot of measures to tapping those sort of underdeveloped market, underdeveloped sort of tourism markets such as China, because there's a huge potential there.
And Craig, now in your visits to Hong Kong, Shenzhen there and Guangdong, what are you sensing? What feedback are you getting from the Chinese that you meet about coming to Australia?
Look, it's all very positive. You know, on a people-to-people basis, when you talk to them and let them know about the what Australia has to offer, they're all very, very excited about seeing it. Unfortunately, they don't know as much about WA as they do the Sydney Opera House and you know, the sites on the East Coast. But hopefully, we can change that and you know, cater to that market.
Okay. Well, let's go back to you, Wendy. And the Grand Canal is a place that we began the program with some great images of the Grand Canal. Let's take a quick look back at a special as we travel down the Grand Canal there in Jiangsu province.
We are here on the Liun River. It's the part of the Grand Canal that runs through Huai'an here. This section of the Grand Canal actually has over 2,000 years of history, and you can definitely still experience those relics of the past. We are just passing the most beautiful pagoda over here. And back in the day, this section of the Grand Canal saw a lot of trade, a lot of activity, which caused this city here to be very, very prosperous and a very important city along the Grand Canal. So I'm just enjoying this right now. We are on a boat cruise. We're experiencing the night lights of Huai'an. It's so beautiful.
The waterways of Huai'an, entree to our final destination here on the Grand Canal in Jiangsu province.
Dr. Fang, talking of Australia, what sort of revenue before the pandemic were overseas visitors and specifically Chinese bringing to Australia?
Well, we're talking about billions of dollars here from the Chinese tourism market. I think Craig just mentioned about the products. One of the motivations, right? One of the motivations actually behind is actually to experience Australian products as well. So that's something we tend to forget when we sell tourism, is that tourism is a combination of services and products embedded. So when people actually talking about, you know, Australian food and lobsters and seafood, all those type of things, it also attracts them to go over to Australia. Then if we're looking at per spend, I think when we are looking at Western Australian figures, the figure we're looking at prior pandemic is that every Chinese tourist in general spend about 450 to about 650 Australian dollar per day, that including accommodation, etc. So this is why the Chinese tourist has been ranked number one, even in Western Australia, for the tourism spend. So billions of dollars that the Chinese tourist has brought to the Australian tourism market. And of course, tourism is one of the key industries that Australia has right now. I'm not sure it's exactly ranked number 3 or number 4 in the whole sort of industry profiles. But certainly it's one of the most important industries for Australia. Doesn't matter what state we're talking about. Yes.
So Craig, you're bringing food from Australia up to Hong Kong and then exporting it all over China. We heard Dr. Fang there talk about things like lobsters. What sort of foodstuffs are you sending to China?
So currently we have a range of nuts like macadamia nuts, which are flavoured and plain. We also do almonds, cashews, some Australian chocolates, and specifically our Australian honeys, which West Australian honeys, which are the best in the world because they have no of the diseases that are in any of the other countries. Plus we have the Jarrah honey, which is rated one of the best for antimicrobial resistance in the world.
Well, thank you for that, and I look forward to enjoying some of your nuts. Send a sample pack over here, please, Craig.
Definitely.
We want one as well.
Well, Wendy, while I've got you there, tell me please about the future. Let's all talk about the future. What is the future for travel in China?
I hope the travel to China will bounce back quickly. From my observation, because as mentioned, that a few other countries such as Vietnam, Cambodia, such as Japan have just recently opened. I hope the bouncing back from China is huge. And I do experience that in Britain. The bounce back is very, very, very good and strong. And in Australia and New Zealand, it's good bouncing back, but I think it's slightly slower. It's just my observation with the current opening the borders. But let's hope that together with your program, Greg, and with everybody here, we can actually drum it up and quicker, because after all, Australia is so close to China, it not only geographically, but also that the economic ties. So let's hope that it will bounce back quickly. Let's hope.
Well, we all hope. Tiger, what's your big hope? How do you see the future?
I think it will bounce back very quickly. You know, the many Chinese are so bored of this pandemic and lockdowns and all of these restrictions of travel. And I know many of my friends are, so eager to travel abroad. They called me many times because I sometimes organize these tours for my friends, mostly to go to other countries, mostly just the high-end tours. All of my friends, these are, upper middle class, or some of them, have private business owners. They all love to go. In China, we have now some people say like 500 million middle class. All of these people, they like to travel. Before the pandemic, they always like to travel once or twice every year to other countries. So after the pandemic, I think it will be a huge bounce back.
Well, we certainly look forward to that huge bounce back. Now, what about you, Craig? What are you foreseeing for the future?
Well, look, I mean, I know everybody I speak to here in Australia is very, very eager to get traveling again. And, I hope that China will become one of the destinations of choice, because it, the more we travel over there, the more we become friends, the better we understand each other. And, that just is good for everybody.
Fantastic. And let's wind up with you with Dr. Fang. How are you seeing the future?
I agree with all the other panel members. I think there will be a strong bounce back from domestic side, like Australian travel to different places within Australia, also going overseas. And certainly, I wish China could be one of the potential market or potential place they are going to visit. And also from the Australian point of view, we also wish that more Chinese tourists could come and, explore Australia, explore Australian products, and explore Australian experiences. So I would see strong sort of demands from both sides. And also, by the way, I'm going to continue, my research in tourism with my colleagues in Hainan University. And even though the picture is not taken in Hainan as my background, this is just a background picture. I got it from Zoom. And I just look forward to continue my research in Xinjiang, in Shanghai, and in Hainan, and in Zhangjiajie, in many places in China. So I, looking forward to it. Thank you.
Okay, well, let's wind up this with this wonderful debate we've had with all of you, and thank you so much again. Just tell me this. We'll go around the panel very quickly. I want to hear from you, Wendy. The question is this. If you were taking me to China, but you only had one place to take me to, where would that place be? Wendy Wu.
I will take you to Jiuzhaigou. That's my favorite place. It is a combination of Swiss Alps and the Canadian Rocky Mountains and the magic pool in Turkey, all into one, and even more colorful, even more stunning, plus the Tibetan culture. It's a magic place. I took a BBC holiday over there. The film crew who filmed 106 most beautiful place in the world, they said to me, they agree, Jiuzhaigou is the most stunning place on earth. So if one place, I will take you there, Greg.
Well, I look forward to traveling with you there, Wendy. Let's talk to you, Dr. Fang. Where would you take me?
Well, I want to take you to many places, but if you ask me just one option here, I would like to take you to Zhangjiajie, because it's a wonderful place with multiple ecotourism sites. And also, I have research to do that in that way. And by the way, I haven't been there myself, even though I did research there. That's all because of my colleagues. They are doing on-site research there, so we analyze data. So if there's one place I want to take you, right, it's just one place, it would be Zhangjiajie if we can actually go on travel.
Fantastic. And Tiger, you're the expert tour guide there in China. Where are you taking me?
Of course, Shanxi province. You know, it's not it's not just Shanxi province does not have just Xi'an, and we have other places. And I would like to recommend Huashan Mountain and the Yellow River, and also the famous yellow waterfall on the Yellow River, and you know, also the Qinling Mountain Range is the one with a lot of natural resources and natural beauties.
Fantastic. And finally, Craig, where are you taking me, mate?
Mate, I'd probably have to take you to Hong Kong. We could sample some of my goods and go out eating every day. So you'd probably end up about 50 kilos heavier, but certainly having a lot of fun.
Well, it has been a lot of fun talking to all of you. I do thank you so much. We're going to say bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Zaijian. Zaijian.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.